So today's episode is all about those moments when a trusty pendulum just doesn't seem to get it right, or other intuitive means of predicting the future. Humans throughout history always seem to want to forecast, predict, guess about future events to help them make decisions. And that's just human nature. So today we'll explore what could be causing the problem, how to fix it, and how to view the situation when the pendulum's predictions fall flat. Welcome to the Golden Age Timeline Podcast. I'm CM Rieger. So picture this, you're standing at a crossroads in your life and you turn to your pendulum for guidance. You ask, will this business proposal I'm making be successful? The pendulum swings confidently, indicating a resounding yes. Or if you use a pendulum chart like mine, see the show notes, it swings to 100% likely. Excitedly, you move forward in preparation, only to find out later that the other parties involved said no. So what happened? Another example. You've lost your car keys and go on a massive hunt to find them. To no avail. You ask the pendulum, you get a yes for in the front hall. You search high and low in the front hall and cannot find them. Later, they show up in the car, fallen under the seat. But the pendulum said no when you asked about that location. Strange. Well, it's not uncommon for pendulum predictions to go awry. Let's explore some of the reasons behind these pendulum fails. Reason number 1, the pendulum isn't connected to the right source. So sometimes the pendulum can't predict certain outcomes because they may be beyond the scope of what it can perceive. It helps to be clear what is actually behind the answers. You need to get very clear about that. Is it a malevolent source masquerading as a helpful inner guide, but rather wanting to lead you astray? Or an ego need overriding the truth? Is it your benevolent higher self whose first agenda is to help you grow as a soul rather than make life comfortable and easy? That's when it helps to do something like the harmonization process that I talked about in the previous episode, called the harmonization process. Get clear on who, what, where, and how in terms of the intuitive guidance you receive. Also remember that the future is not always set in stone, and there are variables that even the most finely tuned pendulum can't account for. All that said, your intuitive connection can fluctuate. When you're not in tune with a benevolent source or highest and best inner guidance, the pendulum's accuracy can suffer. Strong emotions or external influences can muddy the waters too, making it challenging for the pendulum to provide clear answers. Make sure you're in a positive, relaxed, unattached state when using any divination tool. Reason number 2, you didn't ask the question in the right way. The way you phrase your question can have a significant impact on the accuracy of the pendulum's response. It's essential to ask clear, specific questions to get the most accurate answers. For example, ask a question such as, will the business proposal be successful? Could mean they viewed it as a well-written proposal, so in that way it was successful, but decided they didn't have the funds. A better, more specific question might have been, percentage likelihood that the other party will accept the terms of my proposal by the end of this week. Or instead of, the keys are in the front hallway, becomes, right now the keys are somewhere in the hallway hidden from sight. Because often the keys sit in a bowl in the front hallway. Do you get what I mean? Or the pendulum might have indicated yes for a future time, not the present time. The timing of events can be a crucial factor in divination. It depends how you ask the question. That's why giving a specific time period is best, as in percentage likelihood my house will sell by the end of the summer, rather than just percentage likelihood my house will sell. Sometimes we just forget to be specific. Reason number 3, it was an ego need overriding the pendulum. If your ego strongly desires a particular outcome, it can, of course, interfere with the pendulum's response. Your desires and fears can sometimes overshadow the subtle movements of the pendulum. If you suspect that's going on, you can state your question this way to the pendulum. Even if my ego doesn't want to hear this, or if it doesn't make logical sense, or it's an answer I'm not expecting, I want the truth anyway. Then ask your question. What is the percentage likelihood that the other party will accept the terms of my proposal by the end of the week? Now, I will say that sometimes, even when the pendulum is known to give an incorrect answer, that might be because there was a lesson your higher self wanted you to learn from the situation, such as to let go of attachment to certain life paths, to become wiser in your discernment when asking questions, to activate you to go on a certain path, even if the end result isn't what you want, but because going on the journey helps you learn something. For example, a divination tool like a pendulum might say yes to the question, it serves me to explore this romantic relationship right now. But the relationship didn't work out in the long run. Yet you learned something very important going on that journey. So it did serve you to explore it. Number 4, it did happen in another timeline that you're not on anymore. So, in the realm of quantum possibilities, there are countless parallel timelines, supposedly. Sometimes the pendulum might tap into a reality where your desired outcome did happen, but when the date rolls around, you're no longer on that specific timeline. So it's a bit of a mind bender, but it could account for things like the Mandela effect, which is an observed phenomenon in which a large segment of the population remembers a shared memory of an event differently than how it now presents itself. For example, when Nelson Mandela died, certain song lyrics, or celebrity Richard Simmons with his headband or nod. So timelines shift ever so slightly, and sometimes you remember both timelines. Now, how could that be possible? There is a theory that linear time is an illusion and it only exists in lower dimensions. In the higher dimensions, you can access any point in time. It's like a film editor in the days when they'd have long rolls of film of single frames, and they want to fix one moment in time in a movie. They just find that frame and edit it. Then by running the film fast enough, it gives the illusion of a person or object moving. But it's all just stationary images. So applied to the pendulum divination, there's the idea that your future self, who's lived this reality before, may want to repeat certain experiences of your lives until you get it right. It's like Groundhog's Day, the movie, but without the memory that you've lived this experience before. So there are low and high dimensional states and low and high dimensional environments. So you may start in a low dimensional state like the Bill Murray character did in the movie, whereby he's reliving the day over and over again until he matured. Or sometimes if you're a higher dimensional soul, you like to start in a high dimensional environment and work your way through progressively lower dimensional environments to test your strength of character. It's like moving through the colors of the rainbow from high frequency to low, from violet down to reds and browns. First time all goes well. Now the soul wants more challenges, so goes down a frequency level. It goes well, but with a few glitches. Third time, more glitches, more soul growth to overcome. Fourth time, some full-on obstacles, but you're still successful. So say while in the fourth level you ask the pendulum percentage likelihood of success, you get 100%, but then you switch to the fifth frequency timeline in a lower density where there's huge obstacles so great you cannot overcome them, so the success ends up being 0%. It's like a weightlifter stacking on heavier weights to build more muscle. So similar to that issue is reason number 5. When you asked, it was a yes, and later it became a no. Events can change, and a yes can turn into a no if circumstances or decisions shift after you consulted the pendulum. For example, These days, two main timelines are running parallel to each other. There's the ascending timeline heading towards the foretold golden age of humanity, 1,000 years of peace and prosperity. Then there's the descending timeline heading towards more unrest, struggle, scarcity, conflict. Some souls want to continue on the strife timeline because they're learning a lot as a soul, having a human experience in a body. You don't learn as much on a peaceful timeline. But if you've been on the strife timeline a long time and have learned all the lessons you need for now, you're ready for a break. Both timelines are neutral from a 40,000-foot view, but right now many people are straddling both timelines as they choose where they want to go next. So one day you're more on the descending timeline and you get a yes that a certain business project will happen, but later you shifted to the ascending timeline where the project isn't appropriate, so it doesn't happen. So the pendulum isn't wrong, you've shifted. Now, similar to that, but slightly different again, is reason number 6. It was a yes and became no because you lost faith. Your belief and intention can influence the outcome. If you lose faith or stop believing in a positive outcome, the outcome can change. So when the pendulum is controlled by a higher benevolent force, it may indicate a positive outcome to something you want, like, say, getting a certain business deal. It does this because positive expectations can affect the result in a positive way. What you believe, you can achieve, as the old saying goes. But if you've let doubt creep in too often, imagining a scenario where you don't get the deal, and feeling all the emotions of disappointment, self-recrimination, and frustration that outcome may produce, that affects your external reality. It might make the decision maker for your deal turn sour on it, if you believe in the idea that your state of mind affects other people and environments. But if you stayed more optimistic, imagine it being successful, it can make the decision maker for your deal turn sweet on it. Make sense? This brings up another interesting notion about why you might get a seemingly wrong answer, which is reason number 7. It was the higher self using a carrot or stick technique. Now, sometimes the higher self uses the pendulum to teach a soul lesson. Expecting something will be successful can help bring it to fruition, but it might not be right in the grand scheme of things. So the previous example was what I call the carrot technique. Giving you a positive answer to something you want acts like the proverbial carrot on the pole that horse and buggy drivers would use. They dangle a carrot a few feet in front of a horse's face to keep it moving forward. The horse only gets the carrot when the buggy has arrived at the destination. Conversely, the higher self might use the pendulum as a stick technique. For example, once I got ill. I was nauseous and couldn't eat anything for 5 days. I asked everything I could think of using the pendulum in terms of the cause, and all my suggestions came out as 0% true. I asked what would help me get better, and the pendulum went around in circles. If you check out my pendulum chart in the show notes, you'll see that means you need to ask why it won't answer, which could be many reasons. In this case, I got danger, don't ask. That happens sometimes. I was just supposed to fast for 5 days and meditate. Finally, on the 5th day, I watched a video about how fasting while only drinking distilled water, which I was, can cause problems. I needed to add electrolyte drops into the water. I got some, and as soon as I got those minerals in my body, I got better. Why didn't the pendulum give me that answer before? Why wait 5 days? I highly suspect it was a stick technique to force me to fast so my body could have the space and energy to remove deeper toxins, because after that, a few long-term pesky health issues like hives totally went away. That kind of skin issue can often be caused by parasites in the gut. So I've done a 5-day fast of just water in the past. It was good for me, but it was very uncomfortable and I was reluctant to do it again. So life kind of forced me into it and wouldn't give me a solution until I'd finished the 5 days. So sometimes you'll get a yes to going on a certain life path that turns out badly from your ego perspective, but maybe experiencing failure and loss was a necessary part of your soul's growth and learning journey. Just like the all is lost moment in mythic journey stories, it can be a crucial turning point in your life. And if you know ahead of time that an all is lost moment was coming, you might do something to avoid it, like a romantic partner leaving you or betraying you. Sometimes you have to experience the shock of that to learn an important lesson, to wake up, to grow up, to become wiser, more resilient, or more compassionate, or just a stronger person. So just think about tough situations in your past that came as a huge surprise. Yes, the ego self would have liked to know ahead of time not to enter into that relationship or take that job or go on that trip where it all went wrong. But maybe you wouldn't be the person you are today had you not experienced that. Maybe you couldn't help people in the way you can now. People who lead trouble-free lives often aren't very wise, strong, resilient, or compassionate towards others. Then there's reason number 8. The pendulum is wrong because others involved wouldn't get the soul growth they need. So the choices of others involved can affect the outcome. You might get a yes indicating that a certain life path is good for you, but it doesn't end up working out. Sometimes another person affected may need to experience a different path for their own soul growth. So maybe moving to another country would have been good for you, but not for your teenager. So you need to wait a few more years. Again, it depends how you ask the question. Another issue is, reason number 9, you've become too dependent on it. If you've had some success with the pendulum in the past, you might start using it for everything. Using the pendulum is most effective when combined with logic, gut feelings, research, and other forms of divination. It should be one tool in your toolkit, not the sole decision maker. And finally, there's reason number 10, astrological influences blocking the way. For example, Mercury retrograde and other astrological factors can influence the energy around you, affecting divination results. Similar to an inner negative emotional state blocking your ability to get accurate answers, macrocosmic effects can block accuracy too. That's why it's helpful to ask an important question in many different ways, at several different times, with several different methods. So while the pendulum can be a valuable tool for guidance, it's crucial to remember that it's not infallible. Sometimes the unpredictability of life, free will, ego interference, a complex array of other influences make the pendulum not always accurate. But here are 5 steps to take to bounce back when the pendulum or any divination technique has seemingly steered you wrong. Step 1, accept uncertainty. I know it's human default to dislike uncertainty, but it is part of the game of life we signed up for. Acknowledge that the future is uncertain and that divination tools are not guarantees, but rather glimpses into possible timelines that are stronger than others. The winds may or may not turn that way. It's like the weather. When I researched what percentage of time on average are weather forecasts correct, the answer was, it varies depending on a variety of factors. For example, a 5-day forecast is accurate 80% of the time, whereas a 10-day forecast is accurate only 50% of the time. So I think you're more likely to be correct that a package is arriving in the mail tomorrow versus your business will take off next year. Step 2, self-reflection. Reflect on your intentions and desires and examine whether they might be influencing the pendulum's responses. Honest self-assessment is key. If you sense something is amiss, step 3 is expand your toolkit. Diversify your approaches to decision-making and problem-solving because relying on a single method may limit your perspective. So use divination, logic, research, gut instinct, analysis. The more approaches, the more accuracy. Step 4, develop your intuitive connection. Be clear on what you're connecting to. Ideally, set a boundary that you'll only listen to your highest wisdom that's connected to source energy, God, whatever word resonates for you, that it's benevolent, supportive of your soul evolution, and empowering. Invest time in developing this relationship, and your intuitive skills will increase. It's like spending time with a friend. If you only interact every 2 years, the connection is not going to be as profound as if you connect regularly. And step 5 is trust the journey. Sometimes life's twists and turns are part of a more profound soul-guided journey, embracing the challenges and setbacks as adventures and opportunities for growth. And by the way, you can ask various questions to discover why the pendulum was incorrect, and this will help your accuracy in the future. For example, did the timeline shift? Was your connection off? Did you ask the question in the wrong way? Were you being led on a certain soul growth path, etc.? So the next time your pendulum predicts an outcome that doesn't align with reality, remember, it's not the end of the world. Embrace the uncertainty, reflect on the reasons behind the inconsistency, and continue on your journey with newfound wisdom. So in the show notes, you'll see a link to get the pendulum chart, or just go to the free tab at goldenagetimeline.com, and you'll see it as one of the items there. You'll also see a link to a longer video called Pendulum Mastery on this channel, and you can buy a downloadable fill-in-the-blanks handout along with a video tutorial called the harmonization process to create a strong, clear, boundaried relationship with your higher source. And there's a coaching link. Some people really want customized help to keep them on track and guiding them to take action until they get results. So if you're interested in applying for a free one-to-one demo coaching session on that, just look for the link in the show notes. There's a short questionnaire to fill out, and if I feel it would be a good fit, we can do a demo session and see if we want to work together for a coaching series. And there's a donation link. If you find value in our content and would like to support our channel, please consider making a donation through our Buy Me a Coffee link. So that's it for today. If you've had your own experiences with pendulum fails, or if you have questions, please share your comments and questions. I do hope this was useful. Please hit like, share, and subscribe if you want to hear about other episodes coming up. See you next time, and thank you so much for listening.